Darkest Dungeon 2. A game about facing your failures. A game about never giving up in the face of adversity, so you may become more than what you once were. A game about four dirty hitchhikers sharing a small crowded carriage together and grating on each other's nerves until one of them coughs too loudly and all hell breaks loose. But more than that, it's a game about failures. So Darkest Dungeon 2 has been in early access for a few months now, and we've all seen some crazy and wacky stuff. We've seen some familiar faces, unfamiliar faces, the same faces, and of course whatever the hell this is. So it got me thinking more and more about the faces we didn't see. I've decided to do some speculation on the whereabouts for the rest of our Hamleteers from the first game. Here we'll be going through each hero from Darkest Dungeon and, using what we know of their personality and skill set, figure out whether or not they'll make an appearance in our road trip to hell, and if so, how. Each character's status will be determined based on their background lore, their potential mechanics, and then their determined fate. Also, and this goes without saying, be prepared for spoilers from the first game. And with that, we're off! Alright, so we're just going to skip through what we already know, since there's no point in predicting events that have already taken place. Obviously these guys made it, no issue. Not only did they survive the events of the previous game, but some of them became beefy boys. Although one individual is still the same zero bleed bastard we all know and love. And of course, we've got one confirmed case of the presence of a traitorous wench, whose nervous stab is looking more and more like a nervous summary execution. And now, onto the hot stuff. Let's start with the bounty hunter. Calm, collected, and hunting down monsters and men alike for the right price and the thrill of the hunt. Since he never really talked much, unless he was having a panic attack due to harrowing confrontations with unknowable cosmic horrors, it's hard to get a grip on how he'd respond to a world gone mad. Would he be able to carry on business as usual? Or would he follow down the path of a similar money-obsessed lunatic? Looking at the box of the bounty hunter leads to several key ideas that define him: gambling and professionalism. When virtuous, he boasts of luck being on his side and the certainty of his plan. When afflicted, he goes on about folding early to keep his winnings, and how the hunter has become the hunted, really showing his enthusiasm for his line of work. Mechanics-wise, the bounty hunter was all about setting himself up for the perfect shot with his marking and axe skills. With the existing Darkest Dungeon 2 system, these abilities would synchronize pretty well with the combo debuff, allowing for big damage bonuses should the team synergy be set up correctly. As a versatile mid-range fighter, he would fit pretty nicely alongside the Grave Robber and Highwayman, with decent frontline capabilities as well. So considering these two aspects, the bounty hunter is highly likely to make a return. What's more up for debate is how. He could be anywhere. Maybe he'll be pillaging as a mini-boss for profit sometime in the future, or maybe he's chasing bounties solo in this world gone mad. Not too sure if he would join the roster, but hey, there's always a place for him. Next up is the Arbalest, a daring backline damage dealer with healing capabilities, dedicated to raining hot death on the enemy and disrupting their formation. Now, the Arbalest is an interesting case, certainly. Running away from her burning home, she became an accomplished soldier, fighting many campaigns in the pursuit of glory. But all that bravado serves only to mask her dark fears of inadequacy, responsibility, and death. From her comics and barks, her status as a survivor is cemented, escaping the mob at a young age to go off into the wilderness alone, armed with naught but a crossbow. Certainly that's all it takes to survive during the clusterfuck calamity, right? As a plus, her known backstory leaves plenty of space to fill in the gaps, so she's got a lot of story potential. At the moment, Darkest Dungeon 2 lacks a solid backline damage dealer. The Arbalest would definitely fill this niche as a character you could rely on to shore up your backlines and take out the enemy. Plus, her Battlefield Bandage ability would fit very nicely with how healing works, adding another choice of team healer. Given all this, I say she's definitely going to rejoin the group. A survivor at heart, no matter what madness has besieged her between then and now, she'll persist and carry on. Joining the team for her is not just about the glory of taking on this great evil, but to make sure that there is a home to come back to. Next up is the Vestal. I'm sure she's fine. Well, as fine as you can be, considering your entire religion has crumbled before your eyes, and the holy flame has been reduced to a holy glow stick. From her barks in the comics, it's fair to say that she's a little repressed. Just a smidge. A holy woman who got horny on main so much that it distracted her from her duties. The Vestal's reliance on the same faith that tortured her can be seen in almost all her barks, afflicted or otherwise. Really, it seems that throughout her life she was mercilessly abused by everyone around her. Everyone in the convent seemed to love making her suffer, even her fellow sisters of faith. Really, it all paints the picture of a woman who is justifying her cruel upbringing with the very suffering that was inflicted upon her. Gameplay-wise, I don't really see how she could work. What with the limit on how healing works and all. She'd be back ranks just like in the original, but all her healing skills would have to be completely reworked to the point where it just wouldn't be the same character. And don't even get me started on those mace skills. I mean, come on, no one in their right mind would bring her to the front lines for any reason. Come on ladies, here we go, let's go for gold, we're gonna do this, here we go, yeah! Yeah! Anyway, I highly doubt she's making a reappearance at all, except perhaps as a bloated corpse. Whether that's because she came unto her maker, or something else is an entirely different matter. Next, the Abomination. Yeah, I don't like his chances. A despondent man, plagued with goat lycanthropy, spends a lot of his time wandering, both to escape those who branded him, and to reduce the risk of harm to those around him. A lot of his afflicted barks suggest that, even though he is currently in control, it is only a matter of time until he is consumed completely. I'm no expert, but according to my ancient family tome of Forgotten Truths, the literal end of the world is known to cause shapeshifters to flip out and freak out. That's what it says. In Darkest Dungeon 2, the Abomination's main mechanic of form change would not survive. Considering how it inflicts stress on the party, and given how easy it is for everyone to have a complete meltdown, it would not take long for the trip to devolve into a babble of spiteful idiots. The main combat abilities would translate pretty well, however. Having a casual self-heal, some blight, and then all the beast mode damage would make him quite a versatile fighter. There is one thing I reckon that completely prevents the Abomination from being an option: the Hero Shrine skills. Even in the first game, the Abomination had access to all his skills and no new ones. Although they could set up a system for the Abomination to swap out skills like the other classes, it'd be a bit too clunky, and probably not worth the hassle. Unfortunately, given this, it is most likely that he succumbed to his curse in the fate of planet-wide madness, and now roams like the rest, savagely attacking all around him. Next up is the Houndmaster, a man and his dog. A lawman of old and his faithful companion, the Houndmaster left the force after finding out that his fellow constables were part of a wacky and quirky flesh cult. Even when selfish, abusive, and paranoid, he always puts the dog first, and his background comic of his conflict with corruption suits the themes of failure and shame nicely. In his chaddish glory, he proclaims to one and all that he will fight for what he believes is right. Suffice to say, with the end of the world, he's not going down without a fight. The Houndmaster was always a fun class to have around. Self-sufficient, reasonable bleeding, the ability to be useful from any position, and of course, this wonderful creature. The Houndmaster's guard dog ability from the original gave him ample use as a dodge tank as well, which could see a return in the form of the various evade boons and defender. Coupled with potential changes to pre-existing marking abilities in the form of the combo upgrade, the Houndmaster would make a fitting addition with focus on bleed attacks and utility. So the Houndmaster's final verdict is that of a return to the roster. Although not every character has to have a triumphant return, there's always the chance that Red Hook will deliver a right hook directly to our collective feels gland and have a terrible fate befall the doomed sod, with the dog staying to guard his remains, Great Wolf Sif style. The final duty for his noble hound. Or maybe if we're lucky, the Houndmaster will just let us borrow her for a brief car trip, or like this.
Take this. It is dog's, the very last of it. It is yours now. Woof woof bark bark.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The Crusader, this holy warrior, was conscripted into a holy war and felt he could no longer return to his family after finding new love in the eyes of a highwayman named Dismal after experiencing the horrors of war. Same thing with the Vestal. The source of his holy power has been greatly diminished, although there is enough room in his backstory to expand on it to offer reasons as to why he's a failure like the rest of them. His barks show a more zealous side to the Holy Flame than that of the Vestal, but underneath that, there's a lot of deep-rooted desire for the life he could have had. With faith diminished, what would he do, knowing it was all for naught? The Crusader was always a strong frontline unit with decent side support options. Mechanically, I can't see his abilities changing that much, bar a threshold for the heal and stress heal abilities. There could be some interesting changes to the class that would also offer a unique flavour of frontline unit. That being said, I'm fully on board with the idea of him having came onto his maker in the last game, so I doubt he's going to make a return. Okay, now we're moving on to the Shield Breaker. Now, I'm going to start by saying that I love the Shield Breaker, and it is one of my favourite classes. Loved the character design, the barks, the attacks, the versatility, everything. Now that that's out of the way, I can topple the Jenga Tower of Delusion and say that there is a very slim chance of her getting back in. Story-wise, it feels like there's not much else that can be done that we don't already know, and even then she was a badass the whole way through. Mechanically, she's too overpowered, being able to attack with powerful attacks from any position that also hit any position. There was no proper downside to taking her. Even though some of her abilities could be converted into the new system, primarily Aegis into the new 75% block, I just don't see it happening. A near-complete rework would need to be done to make her balanced, and if that's the case, why not just introduce a new character altogether? In any case, let's just say that she's sitting this one out and taking a winner's holiday in some unaffected part of the world, sipping on a fancy drink. And finally, the Flagellant. I think I can see him over there. Yeah, I don't really need to say much on this guy, given his ideology of be crazy, be wacky, strip flesh off, you're backy. With the Holy Light no longer providing a healthy output for his behavior, chances are his tendencies and skill set may be channeled into more appropriate endeavors, given the state of things. For mechanical reasons as well, he's probably not coming back, given how both stress and healing work in the game. If he were to work in the game, I can only imagine his mechanics would be based around developing a negative relationship with all other characters, with the key difference being that it helps boost the relationship between said characters, like finding common ground with people you've barely met over your joint hatred of one guy. Anyway, those are my thoughts on all Darkest Dungeon characters and their prospects of return. If you have any thoughts, feel free to comment, as I'd love to hear them. And with that, what's that? Am I missing someone? No, I think I'm good.
Remind yourself to subscribe here and follow on Twitch for more ghoulish horrors.